Luxembourg's Finest Metal podcast is back. My name is Jill. I'm your host for today, and I'm super excited to be talking to Edward Levitsky from the Anchor Riff. We made it happen, so thanks for joining, Ed.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, great to hear, man. I mean, we are so far away and yet so close, you see?
Yeah, it's true. The magic of the internet.
Exactly. I mean, it helps a lot, to be fair, to be able to do these things. But so today we are trying to focus not necessarily only on the Anchor Riff, but on you, obviously, on the Anchor Riff, on the latest record, or the first record, actually. It all began with Loneliness. And, the first question I have to ask, obviously, is what exactly began with Loneliness? I know that's a bit of a bummer and a bit of a bit of a harsh question to ask at first, but I mean it's such an amazing title for a record, and I was wondering, should I put that out as first question? I said, yeah, why not?
Yeah, why not? So. It's a great loaded question. It's a very interesting one for sure. You know, we've been talking about the magic of the internet, and without the magic of the internet, this album would not have been made at all. But yeah, it all began with Loneliness. It's simply called that because it really did begin there. I wasn't in a very interesting position in my life at that point. Like many, we were isolated for sure, but I think that was the last straw with the pandemic, to be isolated, physically. Mentally, I was, to be honest, I was living in a new city. I moved from Montreal to Quebec City, which isn't that far away. It's 3 hours away. But what happens is that...
I think it's still a cultural clash, though, even though it's so close. I heard that many times, actually.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a cultural clash. Montreal is a big megapolis, I guess. That's it's like New York. Lots of interesting people, a lot of people. And Quebec is way tamer. It has its own. It's got more, I guess, history for sure. It's slower paced as well. But yeah, I moved and I am with my partner, and we were together as well, but there's this loneliness that kind of creeps in, and you as a person, right? So what happened is, in Montreal, I had bands, I had a life, basically, and I left that life behind to try something new. However, I wanted to keep contact. I wanted to keep contact with the friends that I've made along the way, and, with my old life, my parents are there. And what happened is that slowly but surely you kind of noticed that you were just a passenger in their life. You weren't as important as you thought you were, or as they are to you. That feeling where you lose friends and you don't know why, and you try to reach out and grasp at things, and that lasted for years. Actually, I've moved. It wasn't a question of a couple of weeks or months. It's been years. I've been in Quebec City, so I moved from Montreal to Quebec City, and 3 years later, all my contacts were. They don't care. It shows they don't care. It shows that there's no connection, and whatever I thought we had, you kind of notice, you have this perspective of things where you didn't really matter, and that feeling of not really mattering is a very powerful one, very humbling one, and it makes you go into this introspection mode. And then the pandemic happened. And that's what happened.
I get what you mean.
So it was a big realization. It's a big growth on its own. What did I do wrong? What can I do better? What kind of person do I want to become? And those were big questions. I am being extremely honest, and it's humbling to talk about it. So it's a great question. Maybe a little bit of a bummer to start. I apologize, everyone.
I think as we all know, and you would agree, 100%, music comes in the most unexpected ways, or influences, or situations that make you go like, okay, this is something that is either good or either bad, but I have to get on with the situation and maybe put it into something,
and music can be powerful.
I wouldn't call it useful, but use this drag of whatever power it is and come out with something great. And I'm guessing that's what happened here.
That's what happened here. I was looking for that human connection. I was trying to not, make friends. Makes me sound like I was 3 years old in school, in preschool. It's not really that. It was just this human connection that was lacking in my life, and I tried to put it down on paper. I tried writing lyrics at first. I tried playing around with music, and my friends, the ones that are supported me was music that I grew up with. That my father listened to. So of course I kept contact with my parents. That's for sure.
Yeah, obviously,
so and it was a little bit of an homage. It was my way of saying thank you for being there where nothing else was, and where it's my origin story. It's like the music you grew up with. It's your soundtrack. It's the soundtrack of your life. And
100% agree. Yeah.
And so that's what happened. So the Anchored is a homage in a lot of ways, but I also made it my own because I legitimately had something to say, something honest about where it was, and there was no better title for me than It All Began with Loneliness, because it really did begin there. However, it's a journey out of loneliness, right? The whole album is my journey out of it, and today I am happy to say that I'm very far from being in that state of mind.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that you had such a bad time in your life, but you came out of it on top. So, and the result is there. And I mean, we went through your personal process of how to express these feelings and these situations, this certain loneliness. And I'm actually looking at the cover, and it makes even more sense now to me. To be fair, so I mean, I'm 100% with you, Ed, and again, if I may, how I discovered the Anchoreth was actually via a friend. Maybe you know him as well. He's also he does reviews and stuff. It's called the Metal Inspector.
Yes.
He's also a good friend of ours, and he told me you need to listen to this. This is how did he say? This is so colorful it doesn't make sense. So and obviously, I mean, you get categorized in some, let's say, prog metal just to be vast, And I listened to it and I was like, damn, he's right. This is not like something that you can just listen once or twice. You need the whole package to come along, and there's so much input. And now you said it earlier with your parents' music or your music when you were younger and you were a teen or whatever, and that even makes sense now, because I think there's certain passengers. I'm guessing your dad also likes jazz. I'm just assuming that, but
no,
I could be wrong though.
Actually, no, not a big jazz head. What happened?
Really?
Here's a really cool, interesting story that I don't say too often. But my dad, we come from the Soviet Union, and like legit Soviet Union, way back before Russia. And my dad grew up, with all these restrictions. And long story short, basically he found a way to get in contact with a Finnish radio star person who used to send him illegal vinyls. Well, everything was illegal back then. So illegal vinyls in between two pieces of meat from Finland, just so that they hide what's in there.
Wow.
And my dad used to, make his friends listen to it, and he used to copy those vinyls on, medical x-ray paper, whatever, vinyl.
Damn.
Yeah, so like made the world go round of underground music in Soviet Russia. So I'm proud to say that, to tell that story. He's I'm very, very proud to have a father that's that curious and that has that love of music, but he never listened to genres at all. He just listened to music because it was mostly restricted. So, when we came to Canada, we discovered Columbia House and, those catalogs where you can buy, 12 albums for 10 cents each, but you can't really choose them. And, that was his heaven. I can just imagine how incredible that feeling could be. So, I grew up listening disco as much as I grew up listening to, Genesis, and he loved a lot of psychedelic stuff like, Cockney Rebel,
70s,
which
60s,
lots of Beatles as well. In high school, however, I started playing the trumpet before I started playing any other, cooler instruments. That's what I thought back then. So we used to play some jazz standards for sure, but it's still high school music. So, bits and pieces everywhere. It's really because of my love for rock and roll and music that I started to kind of push boundaries and discovering jazz a little bit by a little bit.
Yeah, but again, I mean, I said jazz. Obviously, there are some elements
Yeah.
on the record, but not only. I mean, it's, and I think that's the term again. I will probably use it a lot during this interview. The Metal Inspector said it's very colorful, and I mean, how can for a band that, I mean, the band got together like what, a few years ago. The record came out this year actually, and I mean, to pull off something like that, and I read the reviews of other websites, and the reception must be out of worldly. This is probably not what you were expecting.
Oh,
I'm
not at all.
I'm just impressed on how on how it went from this this really underground idea and this feeling that, and now honestly everybody, at least I know, is talking about this record because it's so different compared to other prog metal or prog rock or whatever CDs or vinyls out there. So,
well, thank you.
I'm guessing you did a great job.
Thank you very much. And I'm, really, I use that word around a lot, humbled, but it's really the best way to express the privilege that I feel right now. And like I said, I started out in a place of loneliness and isolation and my own ideas. I couldn't even talk. It wasn't really a band. It's the music was built from the ground up by myself in my home studio, which wasn't a home studio. I just left messages to myself, calling myself on my cell phone, leaving myself some riffs, ideas. I didn't even have anything to record with. And I started building it along the way, and then managed to get into contact with other lonely people on the internet, that built to another level of music. And it was a great experience. It was a great experiment, but I've never expected or even dreamed about anything at this level. Of course, I tried to do the best that I could with the artwork, with the design, even the video clips that I did. I really gave it my absolute all, but I've approached everything from a place of complete innocence and naivete. Like it was me being just being happy to discover new things and implementing jazz elements, for sure. You have that idea, you want to do it, but when you are with your guitar in front of your computer trying to record, that's where you kind of stop and it's like, okay, I have this idea in my head, but what do I do? And so you become a fan, you become a lover of the different styles, different genres. And I'm not a prog rock historian, so if you ask me about who's the producer, except for maybe Alan Parsons, I can't really say who produced anything. But that so even into the prog world, I feel very new, very immature, very naive when it comes to everything. And I think that's the power of a debut album. You listen to a band, to music from a place of complete innocence, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's something that caught people's I was going to say eyes, but got people's ears and eyes, I was extremely happy. The fact that we got a label interested as well was, the first thing I said when I did get that email is, are you sure? You're not mistaking, right? So that was the approach to everything.
100%, man. And I know what you mean in terms of there's so many genres, there's so much music, and I think in that sense the pandemic, even though it was a very bad time for many people, including us, something in how you say, in the music industry changed. I think nowadays there are way more people who basically just try writing music and put out songs or whatever. So we are there. You have this overflow of songs, of records, of genres that I've never even heard of. And but I mean, even for Canada, I mean, you have so many great bands over there. And but where do you choose? Or is it even a question of choosing? What do I do? I have these songs, I have these ideas, but how do I put them together? And it has to make sense, at least for you, the writer, the one who is writing the music, he usually tries to implement this. Okay, I have a start and I need a finishing point.
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah.
So, and pulling that off is always difficult, and that leads me to basically my next question is, like, for example, for Canada, we have had also a few Canadian bands, not necessarily as an interview yet, but hopefully that will become very soon. So you're actually the first one. Congratulations to that.
Thank you. Team Canada represent. Yeah.
Exactly. So, but there's this overflow, and I have a feeling that the Canadian, let's call it metal scene, is growing so fast and so vastly, and it basically, I'm gonna say it will probably even take over the American music scene, because it's just so goddamn good what you guys are doing over there compared to something that has always been there. I'm not necessarily saying that American bands tend to do the same thing over and over again. That can be a good thing as well.
I think it's the same water, United States and Canada, but it's just I think I tend to agree with you. I feel like a lot of, the more famous, Canadian bands, they are pushing the boundaries in one way or another. We can start with, Devin Townsend for sure, who just
100%.
who plays Devin Townsend music. That's all his own
his
thing.
music.
But there's Gorguts, who's advanced genre. There's Beyond Creation, who have their own approach to things. Voivod. Who are,
Archspire, Atavistia, all those.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how, and Rush. Let's not forget Rush.
Oh, of course.
And
of course.
I think I'm contractually obligated to mention Rush here at this point. But everyone pushes the boundaries in one way or another, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And I'm hoping that even though it's a lot of homages to things that I enjoy, I'm hoping that our debut album does push the boundaries and provide something new, at this moment, at least, at this scene.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the record has been out for a few months now. So, and again, reactions were pretty great, at least the ones I read, and as you said earlier, you got the same feedback. So. But I see the first record, and I'm sure it's not the last, even though it's a bit early to say that. You never know. I think it sets a waypoint for a new prog-ish, metal-y kind of vibe that still remains faithful and honest to the roots of rock and prog rock music, I think. So I think there's no question there that this record will remain on top of many prog charts, to be fair.
Well, to be fair, I mean, that's when you think about it as a musician or as the songwriter, it's a lot of pressure. Man.
Yeah.
I usually, as they say, the second album, the Sophomore, is usually the biggest, the best album, the one that becomes a classic usually. But
it's too early.
It's too early to say. So you've got this huge amount of pressure. Everyone seems to like it for different reasons, and a lot of people, which is really not surprising, but it's a beautiful thing. It's a privilege to read. Is that everyone finds a lot of influences in the album that I don't know about at all. A lot of people hear things in the album that, and bands that I've discovered thanks to those reviews, Someone said it has Barren Earth vibes, and I'm like, oh, what is that? I know Swallow the Sun. Now I know Barren Earth, I didn't know that band before. And you discover a lot of things, and it's scary, it's crazy, and it's a beautiful thing to read.
Yeah, that's the thing with musicians. We tend to be very skeptical most of the time of whatever we put out, and I mean it's an honest reaction, because the pressure will remain high. But I think honestly I think these records, especially these kind of records, they are like a Michelin star meal. You go there once in a while, you listen to it and you have to enjoy the full experience, because otherwise it doesn't make sense. That's also actually a conversation I had again with the metal inspector. He said you cannot just listen to one song; it doesn't feel right, and to have this continuity and this this wave that drags this whole atmosphere, so to speak, through the record and to this ending that is, again, it leaves you with that question, okay, what do I do now? Not necessarily also like only a listener, but also for you as a musician. Like, what is the next step? Is there a next step? Do I need a break? Am I going to promote? Is it even possible to, let's say, tour this record? So many, again, pressure points.
Yeah, I
come up with this thing.
You feel free to answer those because we're trying. We're definitely trying. There's a couple of things there. First of all, touring is definitely something that's on the table. We're working really hard to get something going on, and we do have a lot of jazz influences. So why not? The one thing I didn't want to do for this band, like instead of knowing where I was going to go, I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't want to have a saxophone player play for 2 bars every, one or song, or if I'm introducing something as an element, there's a reason for it. There's a sonic need to have it in the song, and it's going to be part of the DNA of the music of the song, and that was very important for me. But it's also even more important for me live. I don't want to have someone come up, sing a few notes, get out,
basically stand around,
and stand around, or even just do like 5 instruments at the same time, and that keeps them busy. No, I want them to incorporate, even maybe give a couple of guitar solos or have passages that are jazz influenced, and we can jam over for them to put them more into the front, get a spectacle going, give something that I haven't seen in a long time in a show. And so that's the live portion. So we're really working hard on finding a balance between, like, the whole album is metal and old school prog rock. So we're trying to find a balance that makes sense. Sure, we're going to be playing with a click, but maybe sometimes we can turn it off and jam a little bit and turn it back on. So let's see where that goes. But it's a very tough conversation to have. Even starting with gear. What gear? How can we fly with it? What's the minimum that we can get the most out of? So those conversations have started. On the other hand, regarding where do we go next, that's a very good question. And of course, I've been writing new things. I've been rewriting and maybe even cannibalizing old ideas that I had that haven't made the album. But every time I sit in front of the computer, or every time I have a moment, I feel like a fraud, because at this point I cannot be honest. I have nothing to say. So if I write something, it might be good, but I know I will just introduce a flute in there or a saxophone in there because people expect it or want it, or that's the sound we have, and that's not what it's about. I don't want that. I want to avoid that at all costs. So I'm giving it space, I'm giving it time, I'm keep writing, but I need something honest to say. And there's a lot of happening in the world right now, without going into much details. Let's avoid the subject altogether, but there's a lot of good and bad, and there's a lot of inspiration all over. It's just, I need to be true to myself.
That's what I was going to say, actually. You need to remain true to yourself and to your not necessarily ideas, but your way of intervening with this whole world thing. Because yes, you are you living there, having this thing, but what's going on around me? And I think that's a thing that we didn't have again because of the pandemic. We actually were able to do like these kind of conversations that are miles and miles apart, but. So there was definitely some good things coming out of the pandemic. Mostly bad, though.
Mostly bad, but that's a good driving force too.
Because you don't want to end up in a similar situation again. And I think that comes again back to the first question I asked: where does this loneliness come from? And that's this. And you said it: being isolated and even continuing writing after you just threw out a record like this, especially like this. Like, okay, I just need some breathing time. I just need some I wouldn't say a fresh start, but some.
But where do we go, right? What's the journey?
Yeah.
It all began somewhere. Where
yeah.
does it go? Where does it stop next? You know, it's incredible.
Or does it have to be a journey?
Does it have to be a journey? Yeah.
You know, there's so many questions.
There's the reason.
And very philosophical.
Very philosophical, but very interesting, you know, and it gets into these conversations, and we can talk hours and hours, I feel. And I feel like you're a guitarist. I think you're a musician too, so I think you understand where I'm coming from. You can say this is a cool riff, but does it mean anything? You know, where does
it's 100%. I mean, you can sit in your studio or room, whatever. You can jam for hours, days, and there's nothing.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's this one riff that, oh, this is kind of neat, and I think I can do something with it. And then, but very often you forget about it.
Yeah.
Luckily for us, we all have equipment to record stuff nowadays. Back in the days, that was not as easy. But again, the internet and the evolution made it possible that we can.
And I think it's important to be honest. You know, whatever music you can do, and exactly. As a musician or as a human being, there's something, you know, that happens to the soul. Like, there's something that you appreciate whenever it's honest. You can listen to music that you hate. But if you feel honesty behind the lyrics, if you feel honesty in the music, or you're putting a piece of yourself into, you know, there's empathy that happens, and
exactly.
You know, and I want to avoid at all costs to be a fraud. And you know, this next album that I've started working on, it's been hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be hard. But whatever does come out, the only promise I can make is that it's gonna be honest.
It will be you. Yeah, it will be you. Your thing. Whatever the reactions, whatever the media is saying, obviously media is a high pressure point for, I think, every interpretation of art. If it's music or whatever, you have always this baggage to carry. And I actually forgot the most important question to ask. Actually,
go right ahead.
Was the anchor as a name?
Yeah.
Also, it must symbolize something to you. Right.
Yes, yes.
Otherwise, it would be called Edward Levitsky. It all began with loneliness, and it even though it does. But
the next album is going to be called Edward Levitsky. It's going to be so
why
honest.
Why not?
No. It's. I'm just joking, but you know, the anchor itself. I was looking for something. I had this, you know, I was with my girlfriend and we were kind of talking and laughing, and during the isolation process, it was a little Kafkaesque, you know. I bring back to that situation, and what happened is that we felt like, you know, monks, like ascetic kind of vibe to it all. You know, you're inside four walls, you stay there, you can't move, there's curfews, you feel it's weird, you know. You kind of laugh about it now because it's just such a situation that was extremely weird. So I had the idea of monk, you know, of the ascetic lifestyle. And when I started looking through that, researching it, I already knew that the album would be called It All Began With Loneliness, and I stumbled upon the word, the anchoret. And the anchoret is basically a person who voluntarily shuts down from society, you know, for religious reasons, sure, but it's also an individual for things that they believe in. They just shut themselves out and decide to be isolated too. So it's got this whole it clicked, you know, obviously, as you can see with the whole concept, it clicked, and you know, truth be told, the concept art as well, I was looking for maybe a year around that. I've been looking for a year for artwork or an artist to work with, ideas. I draw myself, so I started drawing things as well, and I stumbled upon this amazing work by Giuseppe Lorsa, who is known as the artist Mira Rido, and it had everything that I wanted to say. It's got, the whole album is about isolation, sure, but it's also about escapism, because every lyric, if every song, I mean, has lyric that has an escape to it, right? So you're in this dire situation, it's bad, you know, you feel terrible, but there's always a way out. And that was important for us, for our mental health. You know, so that's the journey out of that hole, right? Of that isolation.
The realization of, okay, no, this is not something has to change. I need to leave this situation.
Exactly.
It's kind of
there's always a way out, and that was important for me, and that is something that even subconsciously, I think my singer who wrote the lyrics, right after we had discussions, he took them away and wrote amazing lyrics. He had a very gargantuan task, to be honest. And he wrote something that he needed to hear himself, and I feel other people needed that too. And so I've stumbled upon this artwork, which is just the right amount of tongue-in-cheek escapism. It's funny to look at. It has a little bit of, you feel,
the story element of what is going on in this painting.
Exactly.
And
so it's someone leaving things behind, feeling they're in this fake space, Mars, but you can see it's a fake space. It has a fake sky, so maybe it's a planet of this character's own creation, but this character at the end of it all just left his helmet behind, so he got rid of his chains, he left everything behind, and he's moving away through a doorway. So it's got that escapism, it's got that funny homage to prog rock, I feel, a lot. And it has both melancholy, but it also has this everything is going to be all right feeling to it, which was incredible.
It reminded me in some way, if you may, even though it's not similar at all, but the idea I got behind, I wouldn't say it's exactly what you said, obviously not, because this is the first time we talk, but I felt more like the cover for It All Began With Loneliness, the artwork is more like a guy leaving a space that he doesn't want to be in. Even though he doesn't know what is going on the other side. And I had a similar artwork that basically Opeth's Heritage.
Oh, that's
I'm not sure if you know the record, but I'm guessing yes. You know Opeth 100%.
Oh yeah, I absolutely.
But Heritage. You have this big tree, and that was also at their in their history, Opeth history, was a very crucial point in their band history, because some members were leaving, and you have this whole. The cover looks great, but you have no real clue what is going on, and if you look the details and. There's this whole mention that one guy is leaving, not because he necessarily wants to, but he was been basically kicked out of the band. I got the same vibe, let's say, with this record here, even though it has more personal notes, for example.
But you got it perfect, actually. I was inspired in the same way. Actually, the booklet, when I designed that one, if you go through it, you can see that there's a doorway every second page, I guess, every couple of pages, because it's the booklet itself is the character leaving and going through this doorway, right? So throughout the whole graphic design of the package, you can see that person go through door to another door to another door, and every door is a new song, right? So he goes through the stages of isolation instead of being stages of grief. So I tend to overthink things. I'm pretty sure no one would discover that, but I like that.
I like it. Overthinking can be a crucial part on discovering who you want to be in whatever life situation, I think. So I think it works.
Well, thank you. And I think it gets, for the people that do discover things like that or connect in some way, it just gives them one extra level of connection. Somebody actually gave a damn about, putting those details in.
Yeah, and I think also that's one of the reasons why the record has got so many praise, because there's this whole package, and I am a nerd in terms of if I buy vinyl or whatever, it's not only about the songs, it's about the whole concept. You have the package, you need to look at the booklet. You said it earlier, a booklet is there to be held and read through the lyrics and see not only what work went into this whole notion, this whole piece of music, but I think it does make way more sense having a whole something laid out in front of you and that you can actually follow. For me, that's the best way to enjoy music. I mean, for example, I'm sure you would agree, Mike Oldfield's Tubular Bells.
Oh yeah, of course.
I mean, I can still now, I can be stuck on the artwork and listen to that song that I have heard I don't know how many times, even though it's 20 minutes long. But you always find some connection to this.
Yeah.
And that's more than 50 years old, you know.
Classics, you know, and
Classics, exactly.
and writing,
Exactly.
you know, and having, and you know, everything about Pink Floyd. You look at the cover, and and it changes as you change and grow older. You see it differently. You know, two businessmen on fire holding, you know, shaking hands is something when you're in your teens, but it's definitely something once you get older too. So
yeah, it doesn't look that cool when you're in your teens and you want some, let's say, gory Cannibal Corpse artworks. But yeah, as you said, the older you get, the more you understand why it's this particular setting, and you understand the artist way more. So
yeah,
it's always a nice touch. I mean, covers and artworks are very important, and yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. So the other thing I was wondering, obviously there's a bunch of influences on the record, but let's see, what were the bands that you personally, you said Rush, I guess Rush is on there.
Well, surprisingly not really.
Surprisingly not? Okay.
No, I don't think
bad.
so. I don't know my Rush that well, so I always felt that people who know Rush are fans, you know, to the infinite level.
Devoted to the. Yeah.
So I always
true.
felt a little of a wannabe when it comes to Rush. I do enjoy it, you know, but you know, I didn't grow up with it. It's not something that changed my life, but I do listen to it more and more. So maybe the next one for sure.
For sure.
But you know, basically, I took the idea of bridging metal, things that I enjoyed in metal, with prog rock, things that I grew up with in prog rock, so music that my dad listened to, but also things that followed me along. So every song has a little element of something specific that I wanted to integrate, and I started writing music around that element. And that element could be in the beginning, at the end, throughout the whole thing, you know, and it could be just like a general feel to it. For example, you know, the most obvious one is the opening track. I opened that up. To me, it's you know, Shine On Crazy Diamond.
Yep.
You know, it has that vibe to
Yeah.
it, but it also has, you know, maybe Starless and Bible Black from the King Crimson a little bit. And, you know, both of those are definitely influenced by the same thing, I guess. And then moving on, I have the gospel singer come in with a dead man, right? So
Yeah.
to me,
that really melodic part in the chorus, or just after the chorus. So
yeah, exactly. It's like the big ending, crescendo part.
yeah,
but,
crescendo kind of. Yeah.
And to me, I started the idea of writing the song with, I wanted to be a Dark Side of the Moon, you know, in the DNA of this song. And that's, to me, that's the one thing I remember growing up. If I can think as far back, what did really hit me with Dark Side of the Moon, and is, you know, the gospel singing, and that was probably one of the first times I heard that, you know, and so that's what I wanted, and I had that idea, and I used it, and I've also, you know, injected a lot more influences from definitely Opeth that I wanted to, the beginning blast beat, which is, you know, first of all, I wanted to start with a blast beat because people wouldn't know what to think, you know.
Yeah.
So
it can be a bummer to some who don't appreciate like a simple blast beat moment, not necessarily a whole song, but yeah.
Yeah, it would definitely turn some people away, but hopefully they can go, you know, through it, and it goes into this like more melodic acoustic part, and you know, I was just playing around with emotions and feelings and things that worked to me, and that one was very much inspired by my love of post metal or post black metal, you know, Alcest specifically.
Oh yeah.
So it has a lot of Alcest. That's my favorite kind of a blast beat feel, where it's not made to be heavy, it's made to be a texture, it's made to be melodic and feeling, and it big and grandiose, and you know, almost like Brian Eno, like very atmospheric stuff, and that's what I wanted to do. Then, you know, the further you go through the album, the further I've experimented with things. You know, the next one has a lot of Ishan. Obviously, it has definite Ishan vibes. It has a lot of saxophone. I always wanted to end with a saxophone since I heard Supertramp You know, I always wanted like a Crime of the Century.
Or
You know,
I mean, if I think honestly, if I think of there are not many, let's say, metal bands who use a saxophone, but there is more and more
Yes,
bands who
there's
are willing
definitely more
to
and more.
agree that this instrument has a soul of its own, and it can actually fit into either heavy music or more textured music, as you said,
Yeah.
like Rivers of Nihil, for example,
Oh,
who
yeah.
are masters of saxophone users, and that's also some. I mean, I got some Rivers of Nihil vibes listening to, let's say, Until the Sun Illuminates, or even further down the record. That's like, oh, okay, this reminds me of this. Maybe it has something to do with them, or. But wouldn't you agree? Like the saxophone it's not a classical instrument. It's not a rock instrument, but you think it could become the next big thing in the metal scene in general.
Well, it's funny because, and I think we had that conversation at a different interview, but you know, people forget, but it was one of the original rock instruments, man. Plus the story of the saxophone is pretty cool. I mean, it's one of those instruments associated with pushing boundaries and, you know, jazz and blues and being
Yeah.
heavier. It's also one of the newest instruments that ever were integrated into an orchestra of any kind. You know,
Yeah.
it started what, in the 1900s, I think. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
it's the newest. It's the new kid on the block. It still is. It's a new instrument. It's got this contemporary feel to it. So of course, as a
Yeah.
prog artist, I feel like you can get into it. I mean, it might have been a little bit overused in the 80s with a lot of reverb and delay. You know, and playing with sunglasses,
Yeah,
obviously.
yeah, true.
But you know, I still think it's pretty cool. You know, people, there's this like GIF or meme or whatever of this like really buff guy playing the saxophone in a vampire movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that saxophone player is a saxophone player for Tina Turner, and she rocks, man. So
That's true.
So,
That's
like,
true.
I mean, as funny as it is, as 80s as it goes, it's still such a cool instrument. And I always wanted to have it, like in my blood. I always wanted to explore that instrument. I've never played it. I never could actually play it, even though I played trumpet. It's like a different mouthpiece. So
Yeah.
I always wanted to include it. So I'm just happy it's out of my system, and I found a way of doing it that other people seem to enjoy.
Yeah, 100%, man.
Yeah.
100%. It fits. And if it fits, it stays there.
Yeah.
Even though if we don't know if it will continue, though.
The hard
True.
instrument, honestly, like from the album, the hardest instrument was to figure out was the flute,
Yeah.
because that is a classical instrument.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
So if you-
you can't just put it somewhere. If it doesn't stand out, it gets lost. I think in several songs.
Yeah, and how can you ask people, like, it's a classical instrument, so a lot of flutists, they're going to be playing classical melody stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, but how do you play flute but metal? How do you make it heavy? You know, it's so
question.
it's a very hard question, and of course everyone's going to go to Jethro Tull and Ian Anderson, who
Yeah.
was not a classically trained flutist. I think he just was improvising as he went along, and
Yeah.
he discovered this way of playing that's just like heavy, and he doesn't care if the notes are bad. Sometimes he just goes for the feeling, you know, he goes for the
Yeah.
grittiness of it
Again,
all.
very jazzy.
Very jazzy
approach.
Very beautiful approach. Very jazzy. You know, what would Frank Zappa do with like flutes? That's what it is. So it took me a lot of tries and a lot of people that you know, gave their all on the flutes. But I was happy, finally happy, and with the amazing flute solo that Karina Brewer did. You know, and I told her to just imagine playing jungle music with the flute. Don't bother with good notes or bad notes. Just make it heavy, make it nice, make it emotional and atmospheric.
Soulful,
Yeah.
yeah. That's definitely the case, though. So, I mean, again, so many different instruments out there that still need to be pushed in some way or another. Let's talk about. I mean, we had some influences, definitely. Opeth, for example, you said classical, prog rock, and whatever. But what is your, let's say, if you could choose one, what is your favorite band of all time, no matter the genre?
Oh wow. of all time.
I know that's a tough one. I couldn't answer you if I had to answer for mine, right?
I don't know.
It changes, I think.
Yeah, I think it does.
It's really going with your vibe and feeling, right?
I think there's some easy answers in there, in the sense that you can say Pink Floyd and everyone's just going to be like, oh yeah, I understand. Or you can say Beatles. That's for sure going to be something that's going to be accepted, and everyone would agree, and that's fine.
Yeah.
That's okay, and move on. Yeah, it's a very hard question.
Then allow me to turn the question around, because that's a question because I always get the same reaction, and I know it's such a tough question, but it's not necessarily a question that needs an answer, because again, it changes so much, and you will discover probably a new band tomorrow or even tonight, who knows, and you'll just fall in love with it and maybe listen to this for the next 20 years, and you say, wow, this is the best piece of music I've ever listened to. So I asked actually this question to quite a lot of people, and they all react the same, so don't worry. All is good. But another thing that is similar to this question was, and I think we are closing in to our final question, because we are already in some way or another closing in to 1 hour
Wow.
runtime. Again, we get lost in discussions. I love it, don't get me wrong, but some listeners, they like it short and tight, so we'll leave it with that. But anyway, let's say you could you by any mischance or whatever, you would be put to a deserted island and you could only bring 5 records. What would it be?
Oh my god.
I know it's a tough one still.
Listen, The Raven That Refused to Sing by Steven Wilson would be definitely one. The Mantle by Agalloch. I'm definitely going back to that one often. The Mountain by Haken.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Didn't see that coming. Okay.
Maybe
Nice.
Cynic. Figuring out Cynic. Maybe I don't know which. I don't know. I just love Cynic, man. I'm like,
Such a great band.
yeah, it's a great band. I think I'll go with Trace the Nair, because that was the album that made me discover Cynic. So I would go with that. I don't know. Maybe obvious choices. Metropolis Part 2, Scenes from a Memory, Dream Theater.
yeah.
That's an obvious safe choice.
Yeah, can't go wrong with that.
You can't go wrong with that. And I'm definitely missing, it all has heaviness in there for sure, but it's maybe missing a very heavy album that I listened to, maybe, which I'm not sure. I've been discovering this whole genre of this year, and I'm not sure if you're aware, but this whole year there's a lot of bands coming out that are pushing the boundaries a lot. In music, and those tend to be like black metal bands, or Victory Over the Sun. I don't know if you've heard about them, or like death metal, like
I will check it out.
Flesh Vessel, for example. There are bands that are. This might be something that happened with the pandemic, but post-pandemic, I feel like a lot of labels are even taking more chances with music too. So a lot of bands are pushing boundaries of what is dissonant. Thantifaxaf is one as well. Imperial Triumphant.
I think there's also one Norwegian band. I keep mispronouncing it, but actually my colleague Peter, who is usually also on the podcast, but mostly for the English speaking ones, for the Luxembourgish speaking ones, he went all crazy about this dissonant metal bands, mostly black metal bands, and I agree with you that that's one way of writing music. It's overwhelmingly complicated, and yet it makes sense to some and not to others, obviously.
Yeah, it's polarizing, but that's what good music is. If you're safe, if you're doing music that's safe, you might not be doing anything well.
That's true.
Yeah, you have to challenge things, and Victory Over the Sun and these bands, they are challenging a lot. They're challenging, huge lot. And that's how we get progress. That's how bands like the genres like I guess gent, and guitar gods like Polyphia, and all the new ones. You might like them, you might not like them. You're definitely polarizing, but they are pushing the boundaries. They are doing what Frank Zappa did back in the day.
They're opening up the whole notion of not necessarily what is heavy music or how heavy music should be written, because let's be fair, those days are long gone. But I agree with you, this year was crazy. I mean, we checked out so many bands, newcomer bands, or even you. I mean, obviously you are part of it, but this year has been crazy in terms of output, as you say, and it's really groundbreakingly different very often, and I enjoy it a lot of times, because almost every artist and almost every record, I'll just say, I don't know if you know them also, I think they're from Canada as well, or from Minnesota. Okay Goodnight, it's basically their band name.
Yes, of course.
I mean, the Fox and the Bird.
Yeah.
Holy crap, that was...
It came out of and there's, I would name even like No Spoon, their debut album, not even signed. It's crazy stuff. Okrist this year as well. Omnirod came out with something really beautiful. A lot of, I think it's the year of the prog, and just to have the Anchorage be part of the conversation is blowing my mind.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I've trouble deciding on we usually do a top 10 record list of 2023 this year. I'm struggling, man. I already, since last May, I have 10s there, and there's no place for more, so we agreed on doing more than 10, because it would be unfair leaving these guys out. Obviously, the Anchorage is on there. Haha, sneak peek.
Oh my god, thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm just being honest here, man. This is
I used to say
crazy prog year.
I used to say that people are like, okay, well, we're happy to be on your list until we're gonna keep the place nice and clean until Steven Wilson comes up with his album.
Well, he released something.
Yeah,
though.
he released something, and I can guarantee it probably pushed us away from a couple of lists there, and rightfully so. It's an incredible album, also polarizing, also pushing boundaries.
I could definitely suggest, maybe you heard of them. Also, they released a record I think a month ago, Obsidian Tide.
Yeah,
they're called from Israel.
Of course.
Wow.
The Crescendo Crescent.
The Grand Crescendo.
Yeah, Grand Crescendo, and it's the cover album is. I knew about them from before, but that cover album would make new fans 100%. It's so beautiful.
Agree.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah. It tells again so many stories, and even though it's only one tone of color. With some magic tricks, you can make it happen, right? So.
And for my last album, just before I forget it, there's a really cool band already from Israel. It's a black metal band. I talk about them every chance I get, because they're definitely unknown and should be way more famous. It's called Winter Horde. It's black metal. It's progressive, but it keeps the spirit of both of those elements together. If you like Borknagar, if you like Ihsahn, if you like those things, to me, before I even learned about Borknagar or Ihsahn, because I got it backwards, I listened to Winter Horde and album called Underwater Moon. Big story, huge story, very black metal, very.
I'll write it down, man.
Yeah.
I have some homework to do.
They should definitely come on your podcast if you can.
I mean, I'll try, man. There are some who are in the waiting line, so I mean, that was the whole idea, and I'm sure you're aware. Obviously, we talked before and we wrote to each other, but the whole idea behind this podcast again has been born during the pandemic.
Oh, wow. So
we've seen it, we were there when this whole wave of creativity and just people wanted to put stuff out, no matter the art form, and it's great. It's just great. So I really hope that we can continue with this, and I really hope also for you guys, especially you, that you're well. Mental health is important for all of us, and we need to focus on our own mental health, obviously, and our own personal progress and acceptance on who we are. I think that's a good way of ending this very personal interview. I love it. And yeah, thanks again for finding some time for me here. Ed, it was wonderful having you here, and I really hope that the Anchor will continue spinning on so many final players. So
thank you so much, Jill. I appreciate that a lot, and thank you very much for the kind words and having me on and giving me the time to talk on your platform. I appreciate that.
You're most welcome. And again, next record, next interview.
Thank
no
you,
worries,
sir.
man. In any case, again, thank you so much, Ed. Thanks to the Anchor app, and you guys out there who are listening, you should definitely check them out. You will miss something if you don't. And yeah, I'm guessing that's it for today. We'll hear each other very soon. And thanks again to Ed, and see you very soon, hear you very soon, man.
Goodbye, everyone.
Just a forsaken broken and tired.